Hi Broadway World, you are backstage at the Tony Award-winning Spring Awakening. I'm Matt Doyle.
And I'm Alexandra Socha.
And I understudy Melchior, and I'm in the ensemble every night.
And I understudy Wendla, and I am also an ensemble member.
And for ensemble, that means that we sit in the onstage audience seating and sit amongst all the audience members and jump up and whip out microphones and start singing. It's a bit of a surprise because we're in modern day clothing, so we get some people every night that are always surprised to see us there singing.
Well, I mean, sometimes fans will sit in those seats, so they know that it's you. So it kind of ruins the surprise, but it's okay. But it's always funny when you sit down in the beginning of the show, people will ask you, have you seen the show? Yeah, have you seen the show? And you're like, oh yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. And you have to try to lie to them, and you just feel so stupid. And then sometimes it's so funny, you sit back down after intermission, and they just start talking to you, and like
they look at you and go, "So, just seen the show a couple times."
and just stuff like they'll talk to the people next to them, like, we did, here we are sitting, and we didn't even know we were sitting next to a cast member. It's very funny. So they're always very surprised and very shocked, but that's what we're going for. So
yeah,
it's a good thing.
It's such a nice element because people always, the look on the faces around you when they don't know is such a great part of the moment when you first stand up and start to sing. People are always like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. So it's really fun. Well, I always thought it was such a great idea because most swings and understudies don't get to be on stage with the rest of the cast, and that's one of the best parts.
So we're considered swings, and most times swings are off stage.
Yeah.
So we're pretty fortunate that we also get to be
a part of the show every night, and that's wonderful in terms of the camaraderie with the rest of the cast because we're all together every night. And I remember so I thought it was a great idea, and then the first time that you did it, just getting that feeling from sitting around the rest of the crowd and them not realizing that you're a part of the cast. So when you jump up, it's kind of like, see, I'm in Spring Awakening.
Yeah.
I'm on Broadway.
I was pretty excited because when they told me that they were having auditions for a swing, I figured it was a swing and I'd be off stage and stuff. And so I was actually pretty excited when they told me that I got to be in the ensemble too. I was like, well, that's a nice little bonus I wasn't expecting. Yeah. So it's good. I like it. It's cool. I kind of feel like I'm getting paid to watch Spring Awakening every night, which isn't too bad a job.
Not at all. Yeah. I actually went through 5 callbacks when they did the Equity Open Calls way back last September. And so I went to the final callbacks then, and it just didn't happen for whatever reasons. And over the course of 5 months, I kept on going back in for the Melchior understudy, and just and they kept on telling me, yeah, it will happen soon. We really like you. And then I got a call. My survival job was production assistant, so I was on a commercial for Dawn soap ad, holding a TV monitor, just standing there, and my phone rings in my pocket, and for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to answer it, so I just left the set and picked it up. And of course it was Jim Carnahan, our casting director, and he said, "You're joining the Spring Awakening family," and I quit my survival job, which was just an unbelievable moment because it was a lot of work finally coming together. So
my story's a little different. Back last April, Spring Awakening did a slew of open calls, just general open calls, non-equity, anyone could go. And I went to the Boston one because I live close by, and I auditioned there just for fun. I went with some of my friends, and I auditioned. And then I got a call back for the very next day in Boston, which was great. And then I didn't hear anything. I really wasn't expecting to. I mean, there had been rumors that the open calls were, a publicity stunt, and nothing was even going to come of them. So I really wasn't expecting anything. And then 2 months later, at the end of June, I got a phone call from the casting associate, Jim Carnahan, and she told me that they were having auditions in a week for a swing replacement. And I was very excited. So I went down to New York, and it was actually the same day I was supposed to be at orientation for the I know
she was about to do a summer program.
Yeah, and so I was about to go to the pre-college summer program, and so I had to call them and tell them that I was going to be late and all that stuff. And so I went, I did my audition, you know, Saturday morning in New York City, and we got in the car and we left the city at noon, like right after my audition, and at 1:30 we were on the Pennsylvania driving to Pittsburgh on the Pennsylvania Turnpike at a rest stop, like at a Burger King, and and Jim Carnahan called me and just told me that they wanted me to be a part of the cast, and I didn't even know what to say, so I probably sounded so rude because he told me, he was like, we'd like you to, you know, be a part of Spring Awakening, and I just went, oh, okay. Like, I really, and I was like, okay. I was like, do you want to talk to my mom? And I just handed the phone over, and then became overwhelmed with emotion. It was crazy.
He handed the phone over to the company manager for me, and they gave me all the information. Show up at the stage door the next day, and so, you know, I'm listening, just going and I hung up, and then I realized I didn't hear a word that they had said to me. So I had to call them back and say, I have no idea what you just told me to do. I couldn't hear because I was just flipping out so much and just thinking, I gotta call Mom. Well, I was actually an added cast member, so I was just thrown into the original company and originated kind of this off-stage Melchior Understudy track, because originally I wasn't in the ensemble. And so I kind of just had to join this cast that had all been established since off-Broadway, except for some of the new ensemble members, but they'd all been with each other through opening night and everything. And everyone was so open. That was like the best thing about it. Everyone was so supportive, so open, and I, you know, it was just, it's still so surreal to think that I was kind of just hopping around going to some of the strangest auditions in the world and doing this kind of crazy survival job on the side. And, you know, within 3 months after I got the phone call that I was going to be a part of the show, I was performing on the Tony Awards at Radio City Music Hall. It was ridiculous. I remember when that curtain raised and there's, you know, 5,000 people in that audience. It's like, you know, there's no words to describe an honor like that. It was just unbelievable. I watched the Tonys every year since I was, you know, 12 years old.
I watched you guys on the Tonys.
Yeah.
And I got hired 3 weeks later, so.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, being a part of the Tony process, I remember when the nominations came out, we were, you know, our ticket sales were kind of lower than they had usually been, and just that excitement, 11 Tony nominations, none of us could believe it, and then that being there that night and watching somebody like John Gallagher Jr. win his Tony Award, it was just such an emotional experience, and I just am so grateful that I was a part of it. So.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I was cast right out. I got here literally a month after the Tony Awards. So, you know what, it really wasn't that, you know, Matt had already been here, so I found someone.
I know, I'm no longer new.
Yeah, so I found someone that could, like, felt the same way as I did. But, you know, everyone was so open, and, you know, it was a month after the Tonys, everyone was having a great time, you know? Yeah. And I got here in the summer when sales were doing, like, incredibly well, because it's
like
the summer anyway.
101%
at one point. It was ridiculous. Yeah. But everyone was so nice, so open, and just so welcoming, and I really appreciate that. It made this kind of process easier, mm-hmm. you know, and I've only been here 3 months, but it feels longer because I feel like I've made friends with people, and I'm like, I can't believe I met you only, you know, 3 months ago.
Being in this work environment and with these people every day and
every single
all
day.
Through rehearsals and everything.
You gotta get to know them.
It's a family.
You can't help it. You have to get to know people.
Yeah.
And they are family, but they're very ready to accept. You know, they've been together for a while, but they're so ready to accept new people into their family. Yeah. Tonight is my 100th show.
Oh my God! Do you count? I don't.
I do. I keep it. I keep in my little journal. I count every day. But yeah, I've been here 3 months, and I've actually been on for Wendla quite a few times, which has been pretty fortunate, and you got to go on for a whole weekend.
Yeah, I've been on for Melchior 7 times, and I've covered all my tracks now, which I actually have 5 male tracks that I cover, which is an unbelievable thing, because I remember when the job was first given to me, I was like, this is great, but I was petrified, you know, of the idea of learning all those different tracks, but it somehow comes together in your head, and I can't, so.
I don't know, I started out writing everything down and highlighting, and then all of a sudden one day I just was like, I'm just going to remember it all, and I somehow have.
It sinks in.
It sinks in, and you don't need to, I don't really need to go back to my notes, and you get to go on for a part, and you're like, oh God, I haven't done this in a few weeks.
Yeah.
My gosh, and then you get on and you just remember everything. You're like, oh wow, didn't know I would
It's nice to have
that.
have those notes every now and then, though, like when you're thinking about Purple Summer and you're like, wait, what number do I stand on at the very end?
What part? What's my harmony?
Yeah.
What do I do? So it's crazy, but I like it. I think as a, well, not sound annoying, but as a first job on Broadway,
oh my God, it's the best learning experience
it's such
ever.
a good learning experience, you know, because especially, you know, it's yeah, I really like it. I think it's teaching me so much. Well, the first, my Broadway debut, the first night I ever went on, I walked up to my seat and the lady next to me asked if I could switch with her. And I was just like, no. And she didn't understand, and I was like, I can't. I was like, I have to sit here. She like did. So that was kind of funny, because I was like, it was my first show and I was so excited because of the big surprise, and then I had to just tell her, I was like, I have to sit here. I was like, I have to sit here. I have to perform. And so, but she was fine with it, and it was very funny. So
you get a lot of things, like even if they don't actually talk to you directly, you'll hear certain things like, what would he do if I touched him? And you're like, I can hear you.
Yeah, I know. Or you read online, like people saying, like, asking, like, okay, I'm sitting on stage and I haven't seen you. It's like, can you talk to the people? And it was like, well, I mean, yeah, we're you know, it doesn't really matter. We're sitting there. It's not like we're not allowed to talk to you. It's okay.
We have really dedicated fans, though, and
they're awesome.
Some of the things that they do for us are awesome. I remember the first time I went on for Melchior, this girl, I know her name, Aubriana, she made a doll of me as Melchior.
The first day I went out for Melchior, they were people lining up at Student Rush for him at 1 in the morning.
Yeah, there was like 50 people that slept overnight.
Yeah,
or something.
slept overnight, and we'll get.
It's the same way for you, though. It's just the understudies are
very appreciated in this show, which is great, because I don't know if it's like that everywhere else.
I don't know, but there's such a huge fan base around the show that they love to see swings go on, and that's being a swing. That's a really
and because of because the show has a smaller cast, you know, I mean, I guess I don't really know what it's like in other shows, but I feel like we get to go on a lot. You know, because we only have so few understudies, we cover so many parts, and there's such a smaller cast, you know. I feel like I get my fair share of the spotlight, you know, so I think it's great.
My mom loved it. Actually, the first time she saw me go on, I was playing the role of Hanshin, so I made my Broadway debut masturbating on stage, which I think was, and more, harder for her to watch than just the sex scene, but just because it's so much more straightforward and personal. It's so tastefully done that even my grandparents, when they saw it, they thought it was beautiful. And
my grandpa loved. He was sitting like 4th row center.
My grandpa said, "My son mooned me."
He's like, no, I think. Well, actually, I don't even know if he knew what was going on. I think he was just so like proud that I was there. But afterwards, my mom, she's like, now, Dad, were you okay? He's like, it didn't bother me. He was like, it was okay. So like even my grandparents were okay with it, and it was fine. And my parents were, my mom said she had to close her eyes a couple times the first time, but now she's seen it a couple times, so she's very used to it.
That was actually the most surprising thing, was when my mom was like, well, I did put my hands over my eyes a couple times. I was like, really? Okay, but I guess it makes sense.
But now they're used to it. And my dad, I saw this show last February or March, and I saw it with my dad, so he had seen it all. And when I first got cast, the producers made sure that my mother saw the show and knew what
that
we were
scene
getting
entailed.
But it's fine now. It doesn't seem like a big deal.
Well, luckily, it's it's a scene about losing your virginity. So even though that's
supposed to be awkward.
Yeah, it can be awkward, and there can be
if it is, actually.
that uncomfortable tension. But I think both Alexandra and I try to be as comfortable with our scene partners as possible, because and they're so open, and I remember the week before I went on, Leah was just like, do you want to run it? Do you want to run it? Do you want to work on this? She was so helpful, and I'm sure Jonathan was the same.
No, they're so, because they do it every night, so they know how to make you feel comfortable in it, and like, I was kind of nervous. I'm 17 years old. It's like kind of a weird thing for me, but the first time I ran it, before going on all that stuff, like, Jonathan was just so nice and so made sure that I was comfortable and everything. And even when I first learned it with one of the other understudies, it was the same deal. And they're very, the management here and the people, they want to make sure that you're always okay with everything you're doing.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I've done it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It doesn't even seem like a big deal anymore.
Right. No, yeah, Leah was the same way. She was like, next time that we do it, just, this can be a little bit different, and just everything was supportive and made us feel very comfortable doing something like that. So, Broadway World, thank you so much for coming backstage. And don't forget to check out some of the other features on the Spring Awakening microsite.
And don't forget to come see Spring Awakening.
Come see Spring Awakening at the Eugene O'Neill on Broadway.